Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to yet another video. Hope you've all been well. I've been enjoying my time in exile playing League of Legends ranked solo queue when suddenly I was summoned to check this new leak out. Apparently from a totally legit source from Nexon themselves. Not sure what they're doing sharing this with a streamer, but I skimmed through it so you don't have to. Together, let's humor these skill changes and I'll give you my thoughts on it. By the way, if you haven't read the disclaimer at the beginning, this is probably a troll, but if you know me, I don't like wishy-washy takes. Besides, there's no chance that these proposed skill changes are real, but who knows? Maybe Nexon will see this shit and be inspired to make a change.
Stole that shit. That's what I do, nigga.
Cause some of these tweaks honestly don't seem that bad. However, some of these takes make me wonder what I'm doing with my pathetic life trusting leaks like these. You'll soon discover why this is fake news. But enough talk. Let's get right into it. Also, I'll be doing this off the cuff, so forgive me if I start rambling. There's no more claw punch and bow whacking, and at the beginning I thought that was pretty good, probably because I spent an entire week on the worst class ever, the bowman, and just got sick of the bow whacking. But to me this makes no sense, because if they were to remove bow whacking at the very beginning and then to revert that during the beta test, I don't see why they would bring it back. I thought it was a pretty thought out decision to revert the no bow whacking changes, and if they did bring it back, they should have just brought it back with the max bow mastery instead of just letting you no bow whack from the beginning. Personally, it makes sense to have no bow whacking after you max mastery, just so that you feel like there is progression and you just don't get to have it easy from the early game. But I really don't agree with having no claw punch. I feel like with no claw punch, there's just no reason to jump as a sin. Second point, arrows, vertical target search range being buffed by 60%. This is a big change. When I read this for the first time, I was like, oh yeah, I'm down for the changes here. Like, if you were watching during the beta, you noticed that the arrows, like the arrow projectile, wouldn't go upwards. It would still go downwards. It would still home in on targets that were below me. But for any targets, even just like an inch above me, a few pixels above me, it just wouldn't hit. This is definitely something that should be changed. And I hope you're taking notes, Nexon, because I will be going through the things that I do think should happen with the official release. But yeah, it just makes no sense why it wasn't working in the beta. I feel like it might have been a bug or something. I don't know. A lot of the buffs are now shared within the party. There's nothing wrong with this. It just makes some classes more desirable than before. Spoiler alert, I think the only good changes here are just the warriors. There was no word on how accuracy is relevant for the magician, if you didn't know. During beta, mages did not miss at all. Like a level 10 mage could hit junior Balrog. Like, it'd probably just do 1-1, but it wouldn't miss. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that wasn't mentioned at all in this Google Doc. And outside of the doc itself, just know that there will be another beta test coming before the official launch. Just the speculation of will this game release in 2026 has been on my mind, so I just threw that there. What do you guys think? Do you think this game will come out this year, or are we looking to see a 2027 release? Either way, we'll start with the warrior. First job warrior, improved HP recovery, saw no change. Max HP increase got a buff, 5% buff. Well, this is just a buff. This is not bad. I don't know if this was needed necessarily. I don't think max HP was the problem. I think warriors were plenty tanky during the beta. The bigger issue was the pot cost of everything, how like everything was so expensive. Precise strikes got a buff, 5 extra accuracy than before and 3 extra crit damage. Again, I wouldn't mind this. Inkwell had noted that warriors felt a bit weak, and he's definitely received feedback about warriors being weak, so he did mention that warriors would be buffed for the next playtest. These leaks seem very believable just because of how much buffing they've done to the warriors, and I do think warriors will be buffed. I don't know to the extent of what's going on over here. Moving on, Iron Body is now a passive. This seems very redundant. I don't get the point of this. You click one less button, but you receive 10% less defense. Power Strike gets a 20% damage buff, nothing wrong with that. And Slash Blast hits 6 targets again. If anything from these changes, I would definitely love to see Slash Blast go back to 6. I think it's pretty silly how they've reduced all the multi-hits to be 4. Fun fact, during the beta testing, the only skill that would hit up to 6 mobs was the Lightning Bolt, the Thunderbolt skill from Ice Lightning, and every other multi-hit skill would be capped at 4 or less. So to bring the 6 target backs, I think that's a great idea. Overall, the Warrior first job is very deserved, I guess, but we can move on from here. Now, Magician's first job, they got 2 skills removed. The max MP increase and improved MP recovery got removed, and they got replaced with MP training. So I believe this is just the 2 skills that got removed combined into 1. I kind of like this idea. I always thought these 2 skills in particular felt a bit redundant, and like I'm always trying to max like Magiclaw first, but I always had to like, you know, get these out of the way. So I do like that idea. And another new skill called Ethereal Movement, and what it says here is it increases the block chance by 5% with your shield equipped. And by the way, the Magician shield guard chance is 10%, which means if you max the skill, you get a 15% chance to guard attacks from mobs. You'll notice later that mages don't get as much guard chance as warriors do. I don't know if I'd ever max this. This is more of like a late game thing, if anything. And for the rest of the skills, they are completely unchanged. There was nothing wrong with mages during the beta test. The only thing about the mages were they were definitely the strongest. This new skill though, I would definitely max this. This is a great change. I don't know about this skill. Seems like a waste of points. Moving on. Bowman first job class, there's a new skill. Okay, so what they did was they removed arrow blow for some reason, not that I care, but assuming that this is real, they removed arrow blow and they added quick feet instead. Quick feet is basically increases your speed and jump by 10. Honestly, yo, this isn't too bad because the Bowman already has inherent problems. They removed the ability to be able to jump shot. Well, I guess bow whack doesn't exist in this supposed proposal of the game, but to have more speed and jump is definitely nice. It helps with the maneuvering and the kiting of the Bowman, and Bowman definitely takes advantage of their range, so I do think quick skill is not bad. Something tells me if it did exist in the first job though, they probably wouldn't add a speed skill like thrust later on in like third job. Critical shot is unchanged. This new skill is unchanged. We'll go back to this in a second. I want to talk about this later. Focus is now a party buff, which is pretty cool. If you guys played Chrono Story before, it's kind of like that. I think it's pretty cool to make it a party buff because like it adds utility and it gives reason to invite bowmen to the party if this did become a party buff, and I would favor this. I would definitely be in favor of this change out of all the other ones. That I'll be telling you guys what I would like and what I think is some bullshit. This definitely helps out the archer if true. In fact, I think it's kind of broken. Like most people will have like focus mules rather than like bless mules or something, because accuracy will definitely play a big part in the new classic MapleStory. Overall, I think this is a good change. Double shot now has a max level of 10, and it also gets a 20% damage buff. I guess they found it redundant damage skills in the first class, but if that was the case, why are we not removing energy bolt but removing arrow blow? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like they just randomly chose to remove this over that, and it doesn't seem consistent. But so far, I'm not exactly upset about anything. So you gotta realize, like, I was going through these changes assuming that this was legit and everything. So I was like, yeah, this makes sense so far. But moving on to the Thief first job, not too much has changed here. Disorder is now a passive, okay? I think that's pretty cool. I honestly think this is very similar to how Iron Body is a passive, but this makes more sense to be a passive. Disorder makes more sense to be a passive, because who's out here using Disorder, single target Disorder over Lucky 7? This is definitely a buff that the Thief gets. I don't really think Thief needs buffs, but either way, I would much rather, I used to hate on Disorder, but if Disorder Order is a passive like it is in this skill change, I would definitely max it. Double Stab skill animation got faster. I guess that's not bad. I do feel like it's not needed, but either way. Something that did kind of confuse me is Lucky 7 is now affected by Claw Mastery. So if you don't know how this works, Lucky 7 ignores Claw Mastery, which increases your minimum damage on your weapon. And the cool thing about Lucky 7 is it would completely ignore that mastery and only calculate its damage through how much luck you have. Before, I would tell people not to max Claw Mastery if you're going to be playing the Sin. You're basically banking on Lucky 7 to do most of the damage for you unless you're like a filthy drain user. But without the math in consideration, this basically means that Lucky 7 is nerfed early game until you max out your Claw Mastery. I honestly don't know about this change. Personally, I would not want this here. It kind of gets rid of why people would play the Sin, and Sins don't really become strong unless you have like Ilbis at level 10. Sins don't really become strong until you kind of get to like second or third job. I feel like Sins are pretty weak earlier on, so this change really makes no sense to me. I think this was at the start when I was kind of like getting sus about this doc, and I'm like, is this really Nexon endorsed? Like, is this truly what we're going to be seeing? Because I don't know, man. It just seems kind of random. But hey, don't worry. We'll get to like the crazy shit in a bit here. Now let's move on to the second job. We'll start off with the warrior as we always do. This is crazy, alright? This was crazy when I first saw it. Like my eyes opened in like shock. Sword Mastery, or all masteries on this topic, now have a max level of 10 instead of 20. And for Sword Mastery, you get 1 extra attack speed. This is fucking crazy. During the beta test, people would go swords. Even though Axe Mastery was really cool with its bleed mechanic, people still went sword because accuracy was such a hard thing to find. So to add an extra point of attack speed to Sword Mastery, you just basically killed off any chance that anyone would use Axe. If you can see right here, Axe Mastery still doesn't give accuracy. It still has the bleed, right? It also has this new passive where critical hits give a 100% chance to inflict bleed. And that's cool and all, but what's the fucking point if you can't hit anything? If you're missing everything, then what's the point in having this extra damage? If anything, you could maybe see high-level warriors using Axe in like low-level training spots. But you usually don't see Maplers training at lower-level spots unless they're specifically farming for an item or something, like a scroll or something. Although I'm excited about this, this basically kills Axe Mastery if these changes were true. Another interesting thing is final attack gets removed and it gets combined into Sword Mastery, at least for the warriors. Kind of like how they combined these two skills into one skill, they've combined final attack and mastery into one skill. And it's only a max level of 10. That's insane, because final attack gives 30 points at max level. So that's 40 bonus points that you get to put on what? What do you put this on instead? I'm pretty sure there's like a surplus of skill points if this was true. Like the math doesn't make sense here. These other skills did not get changed, but there's this new skill called Momentum. What it basically is, whenever you attack a mob, you gain 3 attack power. You can get up to 5 stacks, giving you 15 attack power, and as long as you're continuously attacking every 10 seconds, you'll have a 15 attack power bonus. This makes no sense to me. Like, I would understand if it was weapon attack, but if you know attack power is dog shit, it is a completely, well, it's not completely useless, but it's so bad that it just feels awful. You know, they changed rage to give attack power. And basically, 1 attack power equals 1 substat worth of damage. So like 1 dex worth of damage for like the warrior, or 1 dex worth of damage for the Sin. So to have 30 points invested into this new skill for 15 attack power, this thing is useless. This thing is dog shit. I can understand, like, this is probably inspired by some other MMO, but I do like the idea of this skill, but for 15 attack power, this thing is useless, man. I feel really bad for fighters, because rage is so dog shit now. Or better yet, change how attack power works. Buff attack power. This thing is useless. Before I get too mad, let's move on to the next class. Next up, we have the Page. We'll start off with the new skill. This skill I really mess with. It's called Defensive Stance. With a shield equipped, increase guard chance by 15%. When you have a two-handed weapon weapon, you get a 10% chance to guard with a two-handed weapon on. That makes paladins the only class to be able to guard without a shield. I think that's a pretty cool buff, to be honest, because I don't think I've seen too many people during closed beta use two-handed swords or two-handed weapons for the warrior class. Everyone was using a shield because just guard is so nice. Remember how earlier I said that magician shield guard chance is at 10%? For the warriors, the guard chance for shields is 25%. So if you max defensive stance, you get a maximum of 40% chance to guard any damage from mobs. And this is a huge buff if true. On second look, this totally beats momentum as a skill. Like, out of these two classes, I would totally pick Page over Fighter, because this thing is useless as it stands compared to this. Blunt Weapon Mastery now gives a 35% chance final attack. It also additionally stuns them for a second. This is like whatever. I think stun is useless, to be honest, only because if you stun a mob, they stand still so they don't follow you, and warriors typically try to just corral all the mobs on like a platform to one place so they can just slash blast it all in one go. So for it to stun just makes it tedious to farm and to train. But this makes no sense to me. The rest is unchanged, but that's for the page. I do like this new skill. I will admit, I think something like this existing in the actual game would be pretty cool. It might be even a bit broken, but I digress. Next up, we have the Spearman. Instead of giving avoidability like it did during the beta, it now gives 40 accuracy and plus 10 speed for Spear Mastery. That is insane. I don't even know why they would give avoidability, but this is such a big juice up if true. And also the final attack is multi-hit, so it can hit up to 2 targets with both Spear and Polearm Mastery. In fact, Spear and Polearm Mastery have the same final attack now. The only difference is Polearm now gives 20 accuracy instead of 40 Spear, and it gives bonus 20 speed, which was always the case with Polearm Mastery during the beta. Final attack removed. Booster is just unchanged. Iron Will now is a party buff, but it only gives half potency of what you personally get. This kind of makes no sense. You're investing 30 points to get 50 defense or give 25 defense to your party members. This thing is quite useless, but you do have a lot of points since final attack is now removed, so you may as well max this. Hyper Body is also unchanged, but the new skills, this is interesting. They gave the Beholder skill and they brought it down to second class basically. And what this does is it summons like this little eye familiar, and it restores 50 HP every 10 seconds to your party members, and it also gives a plus 10 speed buff. So damn, like if you have a polearm on with the dark eye combined, that is 30 bonus speed. That's basically max speed. I thought warriors were supposed to be slow, but it turns out they become the fastest. Jump aside, they'll be very fast, assuming that this skill change proposal is true and proposals go through and all that. And another skill that they get is the Gift of the Dark Eye, and what it does is when striking an enemy, there's a 20% chance to recover 10% of max HP while this guy is summoned. If you didn't know, final attack had this Gift of the Dark Eye passive, but now it's just a separate skill. I think this new skill is pretty cool. The amount of speed that you get on the Spearman is quite insane. Maybe I'll be a bit overpowered, but Spearmans especially won't have speed problems, and they'll probably put like jump scrolls on their shoes. What I do like about the second job warrior skill changes though is it feels like every subclass has its own identity, and I think that's what the proposal was going for. Like the fighter gets a lot of damage with the rage and momentum skill, not really because attack power sucks. The page is very tanky with this new defensive stance skill, 40% chance to basically block all attacks. The Spearman being more focused on the HP side of things with its HP healing and how much speed it gets. Definitely can see more diversity, especially with these two, because I always thought these two were the same, but with the new skill, there's definitely more nuance. So I do like that. But moving on, we have the Magician second job. MP Eater is unchanged. Meditation is unchanged. Teleport is unchanged. This is the best thing. This is the best part of, like, this was, I audibly popped off when I read this. Slow is finally removed. I don't know who the hell is maxing this skill. And I wrote here, thank God Inkwell, because, hey, at the time of making this PowerPoint, I genuinely thought this was like Inkwell sharing, like, the secret deets. But, hey, I am a big supporter of this. Even though this skill change shit is fake, please remove this skill. Nobody ever used this skill unless they were like trolling. But instead, you get this new skill called Shatter. When striking an enemy with a ice or lightning-based attack, apply a debuff for 10 seconds that increases crit rate by 20%. This is very interesting. Basically, it's a damage buff. It's kinda like a better version of this momentum thing. I guess a better version of Threaten. I don't know. I honestly think it's not needed. I honestly think mages don't need any buffs whatsoever. They're just so much better than every other class combined at this current moment. And one more change is they buffed Cold Beam by 10 basic attack points. I guess that's nice. They also nerfed the mana cost of Cold Beam. You know, not too many changes here, just this new skill. It is interesting. I've also heard that it's derived off of modern maplestory. Yeah, I don't know. This is not needed. I also think it's kind of lazy, but if it existed, I wouldn't be upset at it. Next up, we have the Fire Poison Mage. This is all the same, except Fire Arrow's gone through quite a lot of changes. It targeted 3 mobs during the MapleCon release, but during the closed beta, they reverted that back to a single target, but it would burn, it would add damage over time. But now with this new proposal, it pierces through the first monster, dealing 2. Instead of doing single, it now hits up to 2 targets. I wouldn't mind this. I think this is a decent change, but this skill, Dot Apprentice, this is like the momentum skill that the fighter gets, but it's actually good because magic attack is not cucked. There's no magic attack power. So what it does is for every damage over time inflicted on an enemy, increase magic attack by 3, max being 15 magic attack. But again, as I was reading this in real time, what really got to me was the name of this skill. Dot Apprentice. I don't think there's a single MapleStory skill, even in modern MapleStory, even in Maple fucking Idol. I don't think there's a single skill that says this abbreviation right here, the DOT. I don't know, maybe this is lost in translation or something, but the naming of this skill seems very off to me, and it started making me feel suspicious. At this point, I'm a bit sussed out, but I kept on going, as we will together here in this video. We got the Cleric. Nothing has changed about the Cleric except Holy Arrow got nerfed just a little bit by 5 points. I think this makes sense. Even as a Cleric main, I'm not upset about this at all. Clerics were unanimously the best class during closed beta, and I'm not surprised. The biggest reason for why Clerics were so OP in beta is because how crucial pots were in the game. People were getting hit like crazy. It's thanks to how the iframes that you get after getting hit got reduced. It's more akin to like an R-tail. In R-tail, you get hit more often. The amount of time that you are invincible is shortened compared to OG MapleStory, which is why I think like, you know, the Spearman getting heal from this and getting more block chance on the page makes a lot of sense. But yeah, no changes on the mage makes a lot of sense. They did a lot of buffing and not a lot of nerfing. I believe this is the only nerf that we'll see going forward, which is a game design philosophy that I heavily stand by. It just feels awful getting shit nerfed, right? But it always feels good getting shit buffed. Now, too much of a buff, that's a different story, right? And we'll get to that in a bit here. Here we go with the Hunter changes. So what's changed is Bow Mastery, once again, max level of 10 instead of 20. And additionally, you get 10% crit damage with Bow Mastery. This is nice. I have no complaints about this. Bowman is in need of many buffs, in my opinion, after struggling through a crossbowman myself during the close testing. Surprisingly though, final attack stays on the Bowman. It is different depending on which subclass you go. For the Hunter, instead of doing 3 lines of damage, there is a 25% chance to activate the last use attack twice. So for example, if you were to use Arrow Bomb and you have max final attack, there is a 25% chance that 2 Arrow Bombs come out instead of 1. This is very similar to the skill called Quick Draw from Chronostory. In fact, I honestly think whoever made this goddamn skill change basically just took Chronostory's skill and slapped it on final attack. I guess it would have been too obvious to use the name Quick Draw draw. I don't mind this change. I really liked quick draw in Chrono Story, so to bring it to Classic Maple I think is pretty cool. This is very good. Maybe a bit broken, low-key, but I'd say it's only broken if it is combined with the fact that bow whacking doesn't exist anymore. Booster unchanged, power knockback unchanged. Soul Arrow now gives crit chance at max level. Again, this is another thing stolen from Chrono Story. Soul Arrow now gives crit chance in Classic Maple as well, supposedly. And the last change for the Hunter is they buffed the damage on Arrow Bomb by 10%, and it now hits 6 enemies. You see, this makes sense to me. I like this change. What I don't like though is if you keep going, Iron Arrow, although it did get a damage buff, it still only hits up to 4 targets. So if we're going to be giving Arrow Bomb 6 enemies, why are we not giving Iron Arrow 6? Like, does this guy not like the crossbowman or something? Anyways, I think at this point I was thinking like, okay, this has to be like I'm getting real sussed out. Here's the first thing. Again, crossbow mastery, sorry, this is a typo, but it should be level 10. Increases crit damage by 10% like bow mastery does, but it also slows enemies' hit. This is redundant because, again, earlier, the new skill called Amazon Judgment, critical hits give a chance to slow enemies, right? I thought this skill was useless until I tried it out in the closed testing, and it's pretty good. But why are we giving another outlet to slow just randomly through mastery if it's supposed to synergize with that skill, with the first job skill? This just makes no sense to me. This made me think, okay, something's going on. Either somebody did not think twice or this is just a LARP. But you know, we're pretending like this is real, so let's just continue. The new final attack for Crossbowman now hits up to 2 targets. It gets a nerf in the damage, but it hits up to 2 targets with a 50% success rate instead of 35. On paper, that sounds cool, but if you were watching me play the Crossbowman during closed beta, final attack is buggy as all hell, and it feels awful to kite with final attack. So it doesn't matter to me, bro. They need to change how final attack works. And with this change, right, I would much rather play the Hunter than the Crossbowman. If you're telling me Hunter gets quick draw from Chrono Story and Crossbowman still gets shitty kiting final attack, then I'm not playing the Crossbowman. I'm not playing the Bowman regardless, but I'm just saying, like, it just makes no sense to me. Maybe they were trying to like differentiate the two, but nah. Nexon, if you're listening to this, fix the way that final attack works rather than trying to change the numbers of final attack like this idiot did. These are unchanged. This is also, we've already read this, the same as Soul Arrow for the bow. And of course, Iron Crossbow, you already know what's going on. This is stupid. Crossbowman, I honestly think was weaker than the Hunter. This is the most disappointing skill change so far that I've read through. Maybe second to the Fighter and its new skill. Now let's go on to the final second job class, the Bandit. I'm telling you, whoever made this has a huge boner for the Bandit because they gave another 4th job skill. They added Venom to Dagger Mastery, 30% chance to inflict poison for 50% weapon damage over 3 seconds. That's not bad. I'm not complaining about this, okay? I do think bandits are a bit underpowered compared to the thieves, so that's fine. These 3 skills are unchanged. This one doesn't matter because nobody's maxing this. But Steal now is a mobbing skill. Again, this is taken from Chrono Story. Surprise, surprise. It's the exact same skill, except it now hits 4 targets instead of 1. That is a crazy change if true, and honestly, if this gets implemented in the real game, I'm probably gonna main a bandit over a Sin. I think it's honestly too much of a change. I think this is overkill. This skill right here is also another factor for why I think this whole thing is fake, because I'm telling you, nobody's playing the Sin if Steal becomes a multi-target skill. What I do like though is the change to Savage Blow. They buffed the damage of Savage Blow by 15%, but not only that, Savage Blow hits 6 times at level 1 instead of the usual 4 times. You'll see a lot of bandit mains not max Savage Blow until they can like completely max it, because hitting 4 just feels awful. Being able to hit 6 times at level 1 is awesome. You just put 1 on Savage Blow and then, you know, start maxing the rest of the other skills. I think this is a great change, but Steal is overdoing it for sure. And now finally, the Assassin. Nothing got changed with Assassin, which is interesting because if there is anything that had to be changed about Assassin, it was fucking Drain, and they did not touch Drain at all. they even mention anything about Drain. During the beta test, all the assassins were not using Lucky 7, they were using Drain. And that is because, once again, healing is broken in classic MapleStory. If you're not spending mesos on HP pots, you are winning in life. So clerics were top tier because they didn't need HP pots. And assassins were also top tier because all they were doing were spamming Drain, and it gives you so much HP, you don't even have to worry about it, bro. It was almost ridiculous. And I really don't like how Drain is right now, because if you're out here using Drain instead of Lucky 7, bro, you are a fake Sin, and you're just playing this character just because you're a nerd and you want to be strong and you're a min-maxer. You know what I mean? You don't understand the love of the game, and that's facts. But the fact that these guys didn't nerf Drain, it just seals the deal that this is fucking fake, because clearly Drain was a big problem during the closed beta. And I understand innovation. I understand that Inkwell is trying to tackle classic MapleStory as a modernized version of old school MapleStory. But dude, you're gonna make Lucky 7 obsolete and then make fucking Lifesteal Disorder the way to go? It just makes no sense to me. And the fact that nothing was changed about this skill during this proposal just tells me that this guy is a fucking LARP, and I'm ashamed. I'm disappointed that I fell for it. Reading this skills change really did seal the deal, and then I started, researching online and seeing what people were saying about the whole thing, and yeah, this is a bunch of horse shit. But that's my opinion. And now, here we go with the final thoughts, okay? Overall, I think there are a couple skill changes that were cool. What I liked the most was the warrior changes. Inkwell did say that he would be buffing warrior already, so it seemed like a no-brainer. I do like how they tackle the second job skills. I definitely do feel like each sub-branch of the warrior class feels unique and it has more of an identity, which I do like, and I think Nexon should be taking notes in that case. But with every other classes job changes, it's just a bunch of baloney. If anything, warrior skill changes are pretty cool. Not everything, but for the most part. Everything else is a sham. Please don't get inspiration except for the specific changes that I've noted. And my final thoughts are, it only took 1 month for people to cave in and believe anything being posted online. But hey, you gotta admit, it was pretty fun to go over these skill changes. Predictions are one thing, but believing in hoaxes is a whole nother level of degeneracy. I'm disappointed in myself the most for wasting an entire day thinking that this was real. So be glad you only spent a fraction of that time I threw away discussing this shit with y'all. And thanks for watching. I got another similar video like this coming out soon, and don't worry, it won't include petty clickbait bullshit this time. And if you do happen to believe in these proposals, I think
You are coping and seething. You just can't accept what you're seeing.